and welcome to the Black Cat Bushcraft channel. Today I'm out in the woods doing a couple little camp chores. One of the things I wanted to get done was to season up this little carbon steel skillet. And this is one of the folding handle skillets. And the handle is actually hollowed out so you can insert a green stick in this to create an extended handle when you're cooking over a fire. This particular skillet came from Quartermaster General, which is an online retailer. And when it came to me, it was in a plastic sleeve and it was coated very generously in oil. And that oil smelled more like a petroleum-based product, something that I didn't feel comfortable to cook with without really cleaning this thing off. So I've soaped it up and scrubbed it and everything, but there's still some of that residue there. So I figured I'd throw it in the fire and burn it for a while and burn off anything that might be harmful or toxic on the skillet. So that's my first step in getting it seasoned. So stick with me, I'm gonna get this thing on the fire. So you can see I've got a little fire going here. So I'm just gonna put the skillet down in this fire as best I can and kind of build the fire around it. I've also got a big giant char tin down in there full of punk wood. So I'm just gonna build the fire over while I'm charring. I'm gonna go ahead and burn out the skillet. You can see now that I've got the skillet pretty much covered with fire. So I'm just gonna keep feeding this fire, throwing some sticks on it until I feel like I've burned the skillet out good enough to make it safe. And then I can take the skillet out of the fire once the fire dies down a little bit. And then I can clean it up, coat it with oil, and then suspend it over the fire to create my seasoning. So I'm gonna let that burn down and then I can start the seasoning process. So talk about the multifunctionality of fire. Right now this fire is making charred material for me for my next fire. It's also burning out my skillet and therefore giving me a safe, usable container. It's also providing me with some heat since it's cool out here, and as the sun is slowly setting, it'll soon be giving me light. All right, so I feel like I've definitely burned this skillet out good, and if there was any harmful material in it, I believe it would be gone by now. So just using this little handle, you can see that thing's red hot. It's glowing. So I'm gonna set it off to the side and just let it cool down for a while. So I've hung my skillet here up on this little forked stick so the wind can blow across it and help cool it off a little bit faster. All right, so you can see my skillet is cool enough now that I can handle it. And it has a different look to it where it's been burned. It's got almost that blue color. And it's got, of course, that oil has been burned off of it, hopefully, at this point. And so now I want to use a food grade oil to come back and season it. Before I do that, I want to clean it up really good because it's got some residue and things like that on it from where it's been burnt. So I'm just going to use just a little bit of olive oil and kind of wipe it down with this rag. Try to get any of that stuff off. And then I'll give it another coat of oil, which will be the actual oil that I'm seasoning the pan with. In this case, it's better to be safe than sorry. Just make sure that this thing has not got anything on it that could be harmful when you're cooking in it. You can see I'm getting a little bit of a residue off of the pan on this rag here. Just scrubbing it down good with that oil. And then I'll come back, wipe that off good, and then coat it down again for that final coat of seasoning. I really like the construction of this pan. It feels like it's well made. I like the size of it. I feel like it'll be good for camp cooking for myself. Normally if I'm cooking for more than just myself, then I'll need something a little bit bigger than this, but a lot of my trips are actually just me cooking for me, in which case this will be perfect sized. That should be about good right there. I'm not really getting as much of that residue out of it now, so I feel like I've got it cleaned pretty good. All right, so now I've got this thing nice and clean, and I've just poured some of the oil in there and have a clean cloth. So I'm gonna come back and just kind of coat that down real good and try at the same time to remove too much of the excess oil. I want to coat this entire pan inside and out, help preserve it for the long haul. All right, so I've got this thing coated down good, and now I'm just going to insert something into the handle and prop it over my fire. So you can see I'm not making this complicated at all. I've got a stick here for my handle. I just got a little fork stick I broke off just to suspend this pan over the fire. And I just laid another larger stick over the back of this to counterweight, and it'll just sit right there and season up slowly over the fire. Very simple process. All right, so the oil I've got in the pan is starting to season up pretty good there. I'm trying to keep the fire low. I don't want to burn my oil off, but rather have it kind of stick to the pan, fill in the pores of the steel and so forth so it can season up. All right, so you can see the skillet is starting to get more of that blackened, seasoned look to it now, whereas before, when I first burned it out, it had that blue, kind of bare metal look. When I first put the oil in there, I put a little too much, so after it started to kind of solidify, I took it off the fire, let it cool just enough that I could get my hand on it, and then I wiped it out real firm to try to get that excess oil out. And now that I've got it back over the coals, it's starting to look a lot better, a lot more like what I wanted it to look. When you're doing this at home in a conventional oven, obviously you have a lot more control over the results, and you can kind of fine tune it a little better, but this is obviously a process that you can do over a fire, and with a little patience you can get good results. You can see that right now I just have coals under this pan, just a little bit of flame. So it's important that you don't burn the pan out once you put the oil on it. You want to just have that heat underneath of it, kind of like a burner on your stove at home, and that will help to solidify that oil, fill those pores in the steel, and give you that nice seasoning. All right, I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time to tune in for this seasoning of a carbon steel skillet on the fire. This is obviously a camp skillet. It'll probably never see use on my stove at home. So I wanted to season it out here over the fire where it's going to be used. When I do cast iron or carbon steel skillets at home in the oven, I can get basically perfect results. Out here it's a little bit more tricky, but again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be functional. And I feel like that's the results that I've got with this one today. So again, I feel like if I can maintain my skillet out here where it's going to actually be used, that's better for me and maybe just a little more authentic. Thanks again. I appreciate you guys' interest and support, and I look forward to talking to you with another video as soon as possible. And until the next one, take care and God bless.